Hockeytown, it's a place where dreams are found. We fought so many battles here, now we're the ones that they will fear. The cup resides within our town, we won't stop no letting down. The cup is ours, we're all to drink. It's our time, let's rock this ring.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Hockeytown Rundown. You're here with us, your host, once again, Carlo, Zack, and we got a beautiful guest here today. His name is Greg, and he is from the Grind Line podcast. Greg.
Claps for Greg.
I think you're the first person since my wife to call me beautiful, so thank you.
Here we go.
You're so welcome. Yes, we got a lot to talk about today, boys and girls, for the viewers. Thank you for joining us once again. If you are returning, if you are new, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. Let's get it rolling here. Greg, lay the groundwork for those that don't know who you are, for those watching, listening, however they're viewing us today.
Yeah, if you don't know, I'm Greg from the Grind Line podcast. We've been around for, I think we're on year 7 now. We're all over social media. You can find us on Twitter. I'm never calling it X. You can find us on Twitter at GrindLinePod. I run the socials. We're on YouTube. We're on every platform imaginable. If you haven't seen us, go check us out. But yeah, that's we're all over the place as of today. We're all over.
I would be very shocked if no one has heard of you guys. I've been a big fan of your guys' show.
Thank you.
A lot of the other podcasts too. You guys, I can easily say a lot of you guys have influenced us to create our podcast,
Totally.
right? And so no competition, all friendly games here, right? And so we're very thankful and very happy to have you on today, Greg. So thank
Honored,
you.
man. Thank you.
Once again, claps around, Carlo.
Clap for Greg. Claps for the Grind Line. Love it.
Well, Greg, it's been a very intense, exciting, whatever word you want to use, week and a half, last 2 weeks in the world of the NHL, let alone the Detroit Red Wings. And so with the Stanley Cup final, I guess I should start off with that. What were your thoughts of the Stanley Cup final? What did you think of it overall? Who'd you have winning the cup?
You want who I had from the beginning, because that didn't happen.
Sure. Yeah. Let's hear it all.
I had Vancouver from the beginning. And that was sad. I was like perfect up until like the last matchup of the first round. I think I would say the lesser of two evils won. Like, would it have been cool to see McDavid get a cup? Yeah, but then the cup would have went back to Canada. And I'm like, no, keep it away. And then everyone's like, why do you hate Canada? And I'm like, I don't hate Canada. I just don't want the cup going back to Canada. And sure, Florida, I don't want to say Florida sucks because they won the cup, but I mean, it's a hockey team in Florida. And I mean, just nature itself is against that. But I would say, like, yeah, I'd rather have it go to the Cats because that team was, I mean, if you want a team full of dogs, the Cats were a team full of dogs, and which is ironic, I guess. And and then Edmonton, you would get to see McDavid be McSadness for another year. It was really entertaining.
Well said.
Yeah, and sorry, like Carlo, yeah, you are the one here who is from Canada, so sorry you gotta suffer for another 10 or so more years. Buddy.
The drought continues.
It does not bother me whatsoever. I could go to Toronto, check out the Hockey Hall of Fame whenever I want. If I really want to see the cup, I know it's there. Not a big deal, but I'd much rather see that cup in the D. But we'll get there. Yeah,
for me, I think I picked Carolina to win. That obviously didn't work out very well. But then once it came down to the final two, it's kind of on the fence with both. I kept on flip-flopping, obviously. I think a lot of people did, right? Because it was 3-0, Florida, then tied. And, well, I did the jump. I placed a $100 bet on Florida. And thank you, Florida, for earning me that $700 winner. So
that's a big ticket.
See,
yes.
that's a good bet. I
get
got a betting sponsor.
But other than that, congratulations to the Florida Panthers. Greg, the NHL draft was soon right after that. It was very quick. And then free agency. So let's talk about the Red Wings and their draft picks. Michael Brandt-Nygaard, Max Plant, Beecher, however you pronounce it, Forsland, just to name a few. Those are the ones that really stood out to me, mainly because they are forwards. So, and that was something that I think a lot of fans, I know for myself, at least speaking for myself, that I wanted to see the Wings do a lot more upside swings on the forward end. So Greg, what are your thoughts on MBN, all the other picks? Who did you want the Red Wings to select? If you go back and watch my live stream or our live stream, you'll see that I was very disappointed Cole Yzerman's name wasn't selected, but I'm very happy MBN was. So lay it down for us, Greg.
Yeah, so at that spot with the names on the board, the bottom of my heart wanted them to take a little bit of a chance there. MBN, great player, huge dude, really rough. He's going to be the kind of, again, just another big piss you off type guy. He's got a good shot. But I don't think that he's going to be this like perennial 30 goal scorer dude. With who was left, I'm like, hey, maybe they'll go grab a Cole Yzerman. Maybe they'll go grab Michael Hagee. Maybe they'll go high offense, like big offensive ceiling. And they didn't. They went Yzerman mold. They went big power forward who hopefully has top 6 ability, but could land in the middle 6. Now, he was mocked as high as number 6 by Tony Ferrari. He was not mocked as low as number 16 in some circles, or 17 by Bob McKenzie and Craig Button. But if anything, he's got an adult body already. He's playing a solid game. He will probably go back. He's definitely going back to the SHL. He's going to go play with Axel Sandin Plika in the SHL next season. And I think it was a safe pick. And you're right about going forward for most of the draft. That's what I had from the beginning, is that we've got one of the best defensive pipelines in the entire league. And now it's time to build up that forward. Max Plant, I think, is that's the one pick where you're like, this is a high upside pick. This is a guy that if he pops off, I mean, he had, 29 points in 25 games for the US NTDP juniors. He had 61 points in 51 games for the U.S. national team. He's going to the University of Minnesota Duluth. And this is a kid who maybe his offense does pop off and he goes that way. You talk about Beecher. Beecher's a guy who he's an overager. He was drafted.
I'm big on Beecher. He's sweet.
He doesn't have to go back to the CHL. He can go to the Griffins next season. And he's another guy who he went from 38 points in 63 games in 2022-23 with Prince George. Stayed with Prince George, and in 2023-24 had 96 points in 58 games. That's an explosion. Like, that's a dude who it finally clicks, and he's a double reentry. And I think that the advantage you have there, he's 6'1", 187. Maybe this offseason he puts on 10 pounds. He's pushing 200.
That's big.
He goes right into the Griffins lineup. And then maybe you can, this is where you look to the future, and maybe you transition out a guy like Carter Mazur and replace him with a Beecher. Maybe you transition out a Marco Kasper because Beecher can play center. You transition out a Marco Kasper and you refill it with Beecher. So I think that was one of the smarter moves where you grab a guy where most of these kids who were drafted out of the WHL, the OHL, the Q, they've got to stay in there until they're 20 years older. They've played 4 seasons. He's already done that. So.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the more better picks, I would say, at least for on my end. Like you said, he's pretty much already ready to make that jump over to the AHL for the Grand Rapids Griffins, which is awesome, right? And I did bring up also Charlie Forslund, who plays over in Sweden as well. And he's not as big as Soderblom, but he kind of reminds me of that mold. He's a big boy. He's 6'3". He's already over 210 pounds at 212. He was the 6th round pick for the Red Wings, and he was playing out of the Hockeytown League, I believe is how you pronounce it. He's going to play in the J20. I'm assuming he's not going to play in the J20, but will play in the Allsvenskan League for Mora IK. But in that league, he put up 19 points in 19 games, Greg. So I think that that's someone, too, that the Red Wings should keep an eye on very closely to see what he can turn out to be, because that's a big winger if you can add him to the Grand Rapids Griffins, or maybe as a bottom 6 winger down the line in the future. So what do you think about Charlie Forslund?
So 6'3", 212, you're right, huge kid. This is the one where you look at it and you go, round 6, number 174 or number 176. You say, maybe this is a guy, like you mentioned, Soderblom, who is kind of around that same area. Maybe it's a late round pick that you hit on. You're drafting for potential. I would say anything generally past round 2 starts to become more and more of like a crapshoot. You're throwing darts at a dartboard at that point. But 36 points in 26 games at the J18 for 16 points in 7 games for the J20 team. But he is progressed. He's done what he should do. Like you said, it does say he should play, go from Hockeytown to J20 National. I don't think he will. I think he'll probably go to Allsvenskan. But it's a kid who at that point you're drafting for size and what you see him doing with that size currently. The problem with guys that big normally, especially 18-year-olds, is that it takes them a while. They're like really awkward. Like Soderblom was awkward initially, and they're not used to having long legs and long arms, and they don't know how to use a stick. Forsland is his offense is what's been popping most recently. He's got a really good shot. He's got a quick release, and he finds kind of what you would consider soft areas of the ice because he's good at floating around and finding empty space. So if that continues to develop, and we all know Håkan Andersson is generally a draft god, and he's got eyes on all these kids over in Sweden, that this is one, it screams Håkan Andersson pick, where you say maybe 2 years down the road, 2 seasons from now, he's a kid that's scoring goals in bunches. And then maybe he's in the SHL in 2 seasons. And then he spends a season there, comes over to Grand Rapids or Toledo. So with guys that are picked this late, it's normally a little longer of a development process. But any kid I'm going to trust the Red Wings to draft anyone from Sweden. If you don't do that right now, I mean, they've been doing it forever. It's the Red Wings factory over there.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think I saw a great tweet that summed up what the SHL actually stands for, and that's Steve's Hockey League.
Yeah,
Bravo.
That's a good one.
Bravo. That's just what we're turning into here.
Yep.
It is the Red Wings minor club affiliate team outside of Grand Rapids and Toledo, right? Right. So, but kind of backtracking, Greg, let's go back to MBN because there was a quote from Steve Yzerman after day 1 of the draft. MBN came out saying that he believes that his best trait is his shot. And then when presented that to Steve, he says, "Oh yeah, he can rip it." So what are tell everyone your thoughts about his shot, because I do think that his shot is really good, a lot better than a lot of people seem to think, because that's what a lot of people wanted, that guy with the high upside and shooting. So can MBN become a potential 25 to 20 or 30 goal scorer in the NHL?
I say that if you're looking at ceilings, you're right. He has a shot. He's got a powerful shot. The guy's got a bomb. He can shoot from far. I just want to see it happen at the next level. So with Moira, the Hockey Allsvenskan, he had 8 goals and 10 assists in 41 games. In the J20, he had 5 goals and 7 assists in 7 games. So that was the big thing. Like J20, he had 12 points in 7 games. They're like, get him out of here, move him up. He goes to the Hockey Allsvenskan, and I don't want to say 18 points in 41 games is bad, 8 goals in that span, but this is where you need to see that offense take the next step. Is the shot really good at where he scored a lot of goals? Absolutely. But I need to see him go even further. In all international play, he had 7 goals and 2 assists for 9 points in 13 games. So again, that's where you want to see, like, hey, maybe he pumps that up next season. Does he have a good shot? Yes. But it's not like we're going out. And again, you got to remember where we picked. We picked at 15. He's not a top 5 pick for his offensive ability. If he was, you can say, wow, maybe we have an eventual 40 goal scorer. It's not that. You got to think you'll be in the right place if he can consistently score 25 to 30 goals a season, but don't expect him to go out there and rip off Alex Ovechkin type goal numbers, or as of right now, like Sam Reinhart type goal numbers. That's not the kind of guy he is. He can shoot, but I think right now, like, you're expecting him to go out and be, let's say he develops into what we hoped Anthony Mantha would have developed.
Just going to ask about Anthony Mantha comps on this guy. Yep.
Like you would have hoped that Anthony Mantha was a consistent 25 to 30 goal scorer, but big power forward who is going to go into the corners, who's going to dig out pucks, who's going to create space, who's going to put their, like, does the Thomas Holmstrom, puts their ass in front of the net and just takes away vision and just mucks it up. That's what you want out of MBN, and he says that's what he does. He's just a big guy who disrupts play. He's a disturber, and he does have a good shot, and he'll bring that to the table. But I think if you can get what you wanted Mantha to be, like if you got Anthony Mantha with a better work ethic and a lower ego, I think that's what MBN could be at his peak.
We'll take that.
Really do hope so, Greg. Please be right.
Seriously, we would love that.
One thing that I like to do, Greg, is, well, at least for me, I mentioned this to the boys, I think maybe in our group chat. MBN almost kind of seems like Nate Danielson, but as a winger. They're very similar in terms of their size, their weight, and everything, and kind of like play style almost. What do you think about that? Do you kind of see similarities there? Or am I kind of going off the rails here with that?
So for Nate, I think Nate can grow into that. I think he's a little lighter right now.
A little. Yep.
I am desperately, and been speaking it into existence is what I keep doing. Nate Danielson to me, right now, and the way he ended with Portland, I think he's starting to look more and more like a miniature Dylan Larkin. The IQ, the play style, the sneaky playmaking, the leadership qualities that he's bringing to the team. I think that's the kind of, like, if you watch Dylan Larkin interviews, it's a lot of, Dylan, what do you do when you're not playing hockey? It's like, I think about hockey. Like, I feel like that's the kind of guy that Nate Danielson is. And he screams like 2C to me, Nate Danielson. So I would say that I think where one of Nate's best attributes is his brain, like his hockey IQ. I think if you were to go him versus MBN's going to be like all body, where Nate's going to be all brain. And when you put those two things together, that's fantastic. You put a guy like MBN on the wing of a Nate Danielson, you're starting to form a complete line there. So if you put an MBN there, you put a Nate Danielson there, and say someone like Cross Hannes develops a great shot, or Amadeus Lombardi, say his offensive game ends up translating, but his physical game doesn't translate to center. You throw him on the wing, and you've got a line of, say, Lombardi, MBN, and Nate Danielson eventually. I think that could be a really lethal line because you're adding smarts, you're adding size, and you're adding high power offense. So I think that's where you kind of get that balance. I think I wouldn't say they're the same kind of player, but I would say they're almost perfect complements.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. No, I think that's a great response to that question. So thank you for that. Carlo, real quick before we transition over to free agency, do you have any questions that you want to ask Greg about the draft or any topics?
No, this is great, man. This is you kind of stole all the thunder, so it's not a big deal. Now let's start calling you Zeus or whatever that God's name is. But let's definitely jump into free agency because I think that's the hot topic right now. And if you don't mind, I just want to ask Greg, how do you spell Yzerman right now? Because some go Yzeeer, and others right now are going WHY?ZERMAN. And
I love the use of Zed, just to let you know, because my children listen to the Wiggles.
Yeah, okay.
Australia, and when they do the alphabet, they say Z or Z. And my kids are like, what does that mean? And I'm like, it's Z. It's how they say Z in other countries. So now they've added it to their alphabet. It's fantastic.
But that's my first question. And the reason I asked that question is because I feel like that's where we're at right now on the internet and Twitter and all that jazz right now. I'm sure Facebook, I don't even want to know what Facebook's like, to be quite honest with you. But
I've turned it off.
How are you perceiving where this team is right now? I mean, obviously, and we chatted about this earlier. I think we chatted about this for most of the day yesterday too. There is a lot of stuff that still remains to be seen. But as we are right now, the question is to you, what are your initial thoughts? Are you worried? And what do you think the outcome might look like in the next, call it, week or two?
Yeah, and hold on, Greg, real quick. Let's throw this out there for those of you that have been living under a rock. The Red Wings during free agency did sign Patrick Kane, Gustafson, Cam Talbot, Jack Campbell, and Christian Fisher. So sorry, Greg.
No, you're good. And let's be clear, it's Eric Gustafson, the defenseman,
yeah,
not Eric Gustafson, the like super old forward. We didn't sign that.
Yes, thank you.
Oh boy, what a pull.
Worried is not a word I use until we're like a week away from preseason and we've done like nothing else.
Fair.
So yes, we traded Jake Wallman to San Jose along with the second round pick for future considerations.
Yep.
That was to free up cap and to make space on the roster. You have to make a spot for Albert Johansson. Eric Gustafson, love the signing. Eric Gustafson, for people that are really like confused, if you look at Jake Wallman in 2022-23 versus 2023-24, not the same player.
Huge difference.
Last season, he was not great with Mo Seider. He was removed from Mo Seider. He was scratched a few games. He got hurt at one point. When he came back, the quote from Derek Lalonde was something to the effect of, Jake just hasn't been himself.
Mm-hmm.
Which to us says, okay, well then it's more than an injury issue, but he's gone. So he's in San Jose now. You replace him with Eric Gustafson, who, if you look at the JFresh war charts, he has an 82 EV offensive war, which means he ranks in the top 82% of defensemen. And you look at the EV defense is at a 90. So you're replacing him with a guy who is much more solid defensively than Jake Wallman, but who can also provide offense.
Yep.
So granted, he's a little older, and I think age is probably the one concern there. But he's only 32, so I mean, it's not huge, and guys are playing longer now. You improved defensively. What did Yzerman say the whole at the end of the season? We need to get better defensively. We need our defensemen to be better. We need to tighten up defensively, allow fewer goals. That's what he's trying to do. He goes out and he signs Cam Talbot. Cam Talbot played fantastic for the LA Kings last season. He saved, and people say, well, LA's defense is just so much better than ours. He saved 14 goals above expected last season, per just based on goaltending averages across the league, what other goalies would have done in the same situation. He saved 14 more goals than other goalies would have saved in those same situations. And he ended the season with a 913 save percentage and a 2.5 goals against. Like, if you can tandem him and Lyon, that's great. Now, where does that leave Ville Husso? No one knows. Because I don't think you're tandeming Talbot and Lyon and Husso unless you have to send Lyon out in a trade. People freaked out about the Jack Campbell signing. Like, guys, who's going to tandem with Kosa in Grand Rapids?
Right.
Like, it's a Grand Rapids move. So people, it was a lot of knee-jerk reaction. It was a lot of Twitter fighting. Like I said before we hit record, a lot of Facebook seems to have infiltrated Twitter, armchair GMs all over the place. And looking at the contracts that were signed, like, would I have signed Steven Stamkos to a 4x8? No. We're not in the position.
I'm with you. I'm with you there.
We're not in the position to do that. You look around the league at a lot of the other signings, like Jonathan Marchessault was a pretty good contract.
That one got me. I'm not going to lie. That one did get me because I would have loved to have those terms with that dollar value. That one really got me.
But Marchessault is a little older. Yeah. And if you look at the two next to each other, you get people last offseason when we made signings screaming, "Where are the kids?" Mm-hmm. And now you have leaving room for kids, people screaming, "Where are the signings?" And those two things can't go together. You can't do that. So am I disappointed right now? I'm not disappointed. Did he do a couple things that he needed to do? Yes. He improved goaltending. He minus Ghost, because Ghost gets rid of a lot of offense. You forget that we're getting a full season of Simon Edvinsson. So some of the offense is going to be replaced there.
Yeah, tough to compare last year to this year because we didn't really have Simon to get our sample size out of, right? Yep. So, I mean, we're kind of starting at a net zero right now.
We didn't have Patrick Kane for a whole season.
Right. Yep.
That's Patrick Kane did not get to do any actual hockey training last offseason.
Yep.
So we get him for a full season, hopefully, with an entire offseason of actual hockey prep. And if he was playing at near a point per game pace last season, he can come in and put up 80 points, 75 points this season.
Yeah, that would be huge.
You're ahead. You're ahead at that point. So does more need to be done? Yes. We have too many defensemen. We have too many goalies right now.
Yeah.
Are there moves like the Jacob Trouba thing is still out there? I'm on the fence if that actually happens right now. There's rumors that Florida is shopping Aaron Ekblad. That's been.
Who would you rather have there, Greg? I wanted to ask you that.
Between who? Ekblad and Trouba?
Yeah.
Right before we started, Greg, I had just seen that tweet and I presented it to our group chat. So let us know what your thoughts are between the two.
Ekblad's a no-brainer. Ekblad's going to cost a lot more.
Yeah.
He's going to come in. He's going to need an extension. I think when I checked Evolving Hockey's projector,
1 year,
I think it had him. Yeah, I think it had him projected at an 8x8.45 or something in that, which is great for what would be the second pair right defenseman.
Yeah.
But when you do that contract and then Axel Sandin Palika comes in and you want him as your second pair right defenseman in 2 seasons from now or however long it takes, are you going to play Ekblad? Are you going to pay Ekblad that much money and then put him on your third pair? Probably not.
Right.
So Trouba, I think, is a good stopgap. He's a tough guy. He's more than capable of playing that second pair right D. The Rangers fans apparently hate him even more now because of the whole trade situation.
I can't believe that. That's crazy. I was just reading that.
It's more of the contract. It's the Oliver Ekman-Larsson situation where Oliver Ekman-Larsson was never terrible. He was bad compared to the amount of money he was given to do what he was doing.
For sure.
I think Trouba's the same situation. If you got Trouba for $5 million, he brings that element of toughness to the team. You want a guy who's going to go out and hit a home run on someone's head when they run into Larkin. It's Trouba, and he's not going to get suspended for it. He's already proved it.
Yeah.
So I think that's where you come in with that. He's not going to be worse than Jeff Petrie. He's not going to be worse than Justin Holl. He is going to improve your team by adding physicality, adding toughness, moving guys out of the way, creating space. That's how a Jacob Trouba is going to help. So who would I rather have? Ekblad? But I'll take Trouba. That'll improve the defense of the team.
Yeah, I think they're both good selections. I think personally, I mean, I'm from Windsor, right? So, and I know Aaron Ekblad's from Windsor, so I kind of, my faith lies with Ekblad. But to your point, you know, he does kind of, in my mind, and I think you kind of said this, he will eventually turn into that blockade type of player that's overpaid. And then we're going to be in the same hamster wheel of wanting ASP up so badly, but we got to block an Ekblad there, and a very expensive one at that. So fair points and all that.
So I got a two-parter for you here, Greg. And it has to deal with some of the younger players that we could see. Well, both of these players actually, they have to be on the roster or else they're going to get waived, right? And snagged up by a different team. But do you see Jonathan Berggren based on the roster right now? I know we still got time, anything can happen, but based on the way that it looks right now, is Berggren a lock in the top 6 for you personally? And is Aljo just cooked at this point based on how many left-handed defensemen there are signed?
I don't think so. So Albert Johansson has also played right. He was paired with Simon Edvinsson in Grand Rapids. If you need to slide him over and your second pair in the NHL is Johansson and Edvinsson, so be it. Like, that's not a big deal to me. I think that, again, Albert Johansson is more of what this team needs, a shutdown defender, a dude whose sole purpose is to get the puck away and get it out of the zone. Yeah. That's the kind of guy that you need, and that's what Albert Johansson does. He has a little bit of offense, but that is in no way his game. Berggren's the $1 million question. He was qualified, so they gave him a qualifying offer. It was reported last season that he had rejected an extension at what they wanted to extend him for. His issue still remains that is he offensive enough to stick in the top 6 without being a liability? And so far the answer has been no, which is why he was sent down at the end of last season. Is he defensive enough or gritty enough to be a bottom 6 guy? No. So he's kind of this tweener that you look and you say, well, if my team is hamstrung by putting him in the top 6 and they're just going to let in a bunch of goals because he coughs up the puck or makes a terrible pass, like that pass from behind the net right to the front that he did last season and it got picked off and put in. Like, you can't do that. So if he can fix that, no, you can't. I mean, you can. You're not going to win the hockey game.
Yeah.
But is he going to improve his defense enough to be a top 6 guy? Or is he going to improve his defense enough to be a bottom 6 guy? Like, that's the question. Is like, are you going to get tough enough, like gain size and strength and be a grinder? Or are you going to gain a little bit, a semblance of defensive responsibility plus improve your output to be a top 6 dude? Is he better than the top 6 options we have currently? Probably. I mean, right now, my top 6 based on the lineup right now has like Robbie Fabry in it.
I've seen Fabs and I've seen Rasmussen as well winning Comfer and with Kane, but I can't see that. Like,
make your pick.
So Rasmussen has to play. Like, I don't think you can break up a line of Rasmussen. I think it's Ras, Kopp,
Fisher. Yeah, it's a great line.
The only way I'm breaking that up is if you remove Kopp from that line and put Marco Kasper there.
Yeah.
That would be a great third line, I think. If you throw out like Ras, Kasper, Fisher, like that's a great line. But I don't think you can say, well, we're going to throw Berggren, Comfer, and Kane up because we know Kane's defensive lapses. Like, Kane is offense only. There's no back check there. Yeah. There's no going to there's going to corner. Like, Kane goes to corners and then he goes like this. He throws his hands up and they take the puck. You can't do that because Berggren is almost the same amount of defensive liability. So he's stuck in a hard place, and I could easily see him. Like I said, we need to make some trades. I could see his rights as a trade piece. Absolutely.
So I'm going to follow up then with another question. We did a poll for this on Twitter today. You might have seen it, Greg, but do you see Steve making a trade, and does it involve either Veleno, Berggren, Albert Johansson, or all 3 of them? Could you see all 3 of them being traded? Because I see a world where that is a possibility. I don't think that means that's going to happen. But the one that I think Berggren and Johansson, I think, or actually Veleno and Albert Johansson, I think those two are the most prone to be traded at this point currently, the way that it looks.
I'd say Berggren and Veleno. I'm really high on Johansson.
Me too.
Simply because of what he provides defensively. Like, you're trying to stop goals. That's what you do.
Right. Yeah.
Veleno has not improved enough for me. Like, he's a fine, I guess, bottom line center. Yeah. But could Kopp do the same thing? Yeah, sure. Kopp can do the same thing as a bottom line center. You're paying Kopp a hell of a lot more money to do that.
Sheesh.
But you're freeing up a spot. So if you were to trade Berggren and Veleno and some picks or whatever, even if you were to trade like Veleno to get rid of the whole contract to whoever, send him to Anaheim. Anaheim still needs to hit the cap floor. Yep. You could do that. They get at least a value player in Joe Veleno, who's going to be real cheap, or send him Berggren. They're going to get a value player who's going to be real cheap. And there's ways to do it, but I think that Joe Veleno doesn't add a lot to the roster. He starts good and then just kind of falls a bit and plateaus. Yeah, that's what he does. So I think that if your fourth line had Marco Kasper, or not Marco Kasper, but Kopp as your center, I think you'd still be okay. Although I wish Kopp was making less money to play that position. But I think if you were to trade two, I wouldn't trade all three of them, but if you were to trade two of them, it'd be Berggren and Veleno right now, because I think we really do need someone like Albert Johansson. Yeah.
Carlo, you wanna toss in real quick?
I agree. No, I agree. I think Greg made great points on Berggren and kind of being stuck in the middle right now of being, either not good enough offensively or defensively, just a liability. And I totally agree with that. And that's why I can see him potentially being shipped off. And then I think the same thing with Joey V. Like, he starts off great. He totally does plateau. He just eats way too much pasta throughout the season, probably, but that's okay. Pasta's good. But I digress. But I can see those two going, because I don't think they're not needs for this team right now. Stopping goals is a big need. And if Aljo does that, just like Greg said, we need to hold on to that at least and get a sample size. How does this guy perform at the NHL level? I'm big on him. I think he's going to be underrated. Call me wishful thinking, but I really do. He's going to be an underrated part of this team. And he's really going to solidify a spot on this team and earn it. So I'm really pumped to watch him play and just collect some data on him in terms of a sample size, see what he can do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you guys more. I really love Albert Johansson. I love his game. I love what he brings to the table and on the ice. But the reason why I selected him, potentially one of the players to be traded out of the three, is because I think he's definitely, I mean, we saw the Jake Wallman and we can go in depth about, what we thought the rumor was or the reason why Steve decided to add a second to Jake Wallman. But if that's what it took for Jake Wallman, I'd hate to see what it takes for Mata, for Sherratt, anyone else, even Hall or Petrie. So Albert Johansson just might be the most easiest one out of that defense group to move. So that's why I selected him to be moved. So that was my thought process behind it. But you guys all made great points. Like I said, I love Albert Johansson. I love what he brings. But you guys want to argue with me real quick on this? Tell me I'm wrong. Love to hear it.
I think Mata would probably be the easiest to move out of that.
I think so. Okay. I think so too. Good contract.
Oli Mata's cheap. Got the veteran leadership. He's won a cup. He's a solid defenseman. That's why when he was sat for those games during the season, unless he was like, I'm a little beat up, I should probably sit. I think there were 2 or 3 games where Mata was out where I said, man, Oli Mata could have helped this team tonight. Like, from what he does, he's a solid all-around defenseman. And it was 2 seasons ago, he was one of our better defensemen for part of the season. Like, he did that season what Sherratt was supposed to do. Like, Ben Sherratt improved this season. He played really well with Mo down the stretch after they removed Wallman from Mo's pairing. They did what they should have done the first time Sherratt was with Seider instead of being a boat anchor. So I think that Oli Mata's got value. I think that he's a guy that a team calling, like, say Utah's like, we need another really good defense, or we need another solid defenseman. You could send Mata. Chicago, who's trying to build around Bedard. If you want a solid defenseman who can eat minutes and play a really even keel style game, that's Oli Mata. He's got some offense in him. He's a little older, but it's not a big deal for him. So he's been relatively healthy. I think his entire career. So Oli Mata is a guy that I think if you were to try and move a defenseman, if a team wanted a value on a guy and just to offload a contract or to get rid of space, I think Oli Mata is going to be your best return without really impacting the future of the group. I think someone like Albert Johansson's part of the future of the group.
Mhm.
And I think you get rid of those veterans who still hold value while you try to move that core forward and develop it.
Yeah.
Great argument. I love that. Yeah, I can definitely hop on that train too. Yeah, I would love to do that. If that's a scenario that we can run into, yeah, I'd prefer to move Mata over Albert Johansson any day, right, Carlos? So
If
before
we have
change-
to, I mean,
Yeah.
I would really like to move Justin Hall, but let's not open that can, I guess. But I have one question for both of you guys, actually.
lay it out.
That Jake Wallman trade, was that premature? Like, was that done prematurely?
I'll go first, Greg. This is kind of like what I think is what happened. I think this is just me digging deep, right? In my thought process on it. I think Steve just didn't want to deal with any nonsense. Just really wanted that cap to clear, and he was just willing to add that second to it. I think that's just, it's as simple as that. Other people think that there's something else bigger happening. I think we would have seen that by now. I think it was just as simple. I don't want to play any games. Don't ask any questions. Here's a second. Just take the cap and Jake Wallman. But what's your thought on that, Greg?
So the quotes that came out around that were kind of confusing. There's a bunch of teams that had apparently said, yeah, I would have given an asset for Jake Wallman. And then Steve said, you have no idea how hard it is to move money right now. Like, I tried, and this was the best scenario.
Yeah.
And then Mike Greer comes out and says, we don't want to talk about what Steve's business and what's happening over there. We got a player, we got a pick. And that was the one quote to me that says, ooh, there's got to be more to this than we know. Because that quote to me, instead of saying, yeah, we love Jake, we called Steve, we're like, hey, and then Steve said, yeah, take a pick with him. Like, no GM does that. Like,
Exactly.
Steve Yzerman is not known for just giving away assets for free.
No one is. No one is.
For Pierre Dorian, but for him to do that, and people to say, oh God, Steve must just have been a lapse in judgment. You don't have lapses in judgment like that.
No.
That doesn't happen. There's a reason to doing things like that. So do I think it was premature? No, I think Steve might have thought the Dumba thing was not the Dumba thing, but the Trouba thing was a done deal. And then that whole situation got screwed up. So he might be looking. I know he's actively looking at the trade market. To try and change stuff there. But I don't think it was premature. I just don't think we will know. We will never know the entire situation.
Yeah.
Just like we will never know the entire situation of the Jacob Verana stuff. Like we know bits and pieces of it. We'll never know the entire story.
Just wanted to throw it out there too. None of us here are questioning Jake Wallman's personality. Him as a human.
I love Jake Wallman. I was gutted. I'll be honest with you guys. When I saw that, I was gutted. I was like, what is going on?
But people reacted the way they did because he's a fan favorite. That's it. If they were to take a step back and look at his stats 2 seasons ago versus this season, look at his impact, look at how many games he missed and everything.
Totally.
And then what he was replaced with in an Eric Gustafsson, you'll see the upgrade, but there was clearly something beyond we need to make cap space, because when you just need to make cap space, someone should be paying you like a 4th round pick for Jake Wallman. Like that. It's hard to not see a mid-round pick come back in that situation. So and then still we have future considerations. So no one knows what that is, but it's probably like a 7th round pick in 2028 or something.
Someone on social media on one of our posts are like, oh, it has to be something tangible. The NHL is really hard-nosed on that. And I'm like, okay, like, thank you. I appreciate you telling me that. I understand.
So they changed that rule last season, I think, where you have to get like pre-approval now from the league to use future considerations. Like there has to be a plan. Like you have to go to the league and say, this is the plan for future considerations, because they're trying to cut a lot of that out. Like they used to let you trade money, and you can't do that anymore. Like we'd throw $1 million plus this guy to you. Like they don't do that. So future considerations is another thing they're trying to cut out. So there is a plan there. in some form or fashion. We just don't know what it is yet. And people think, well, maybe they'll retain salary on something. They've used all their retainage slots, so they can't.
It's tough. Yeah, it really is tough, honestly. But yeah, I guess I never really did answer your question, Carlo. I guess I would follow suit with Greg, but initially I thought that's what it was. I thought maybe he just called one team and was like, yeah, this isn't my problem anymore. He's not yours. But Greg, you make a lot of good points. And even kind of following up with Steve, when he was asked, he didn't even talk about Jake Wallman. He's like, I hated that I had to give up Andrew Gibson. That was
he referred to Jake Wallman just as a contract, which I was like,
like, whoa.
I mean, isn't that what all players really are, though?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all numbers at the end of the day. Each and every one of us are. But
to be fair, I didn't want to give up Andrew Gibson either. But I got a forward for a defenseman. And did we really give up a second-round pick along with Jake Wallman? Because we only had that pick for 10 minutes. So
that's true. That's true. Listen, the reason I ask if it's premature is because did he part of me, the way everything kind of went down leading up to free agency, and that trade really seemed like there was a lot of urgency behind it. So that's why I'm like, naturally when it happened, it's like, oh boy, there must be something big in the pipeline here. And I think that's why, maybe yesterday happens. Well, really nothing happened yesterday. And that's why the fan base is kind of like all in its uproar, because they've been led to believe, maybe they were led on to believe something big's coming. Something big must be happening. That's why I asked if that was a premature trade, or was it simply just to free up a roster spot? Forget about the cap. Was it all about the roster spot? Because if it was just about that, then it wasn't premature. It just needed to get done. That's just business.
You know what happens when you assume, right? That's what happens. So I blame guys like Elliot Friedman and guys like Dave Pagnotta and Frank Saravelli for saying Yzerman's cooking. And I talked about this last week on our emergency episode after it happened. Yzerman's cooking. He's doing something big. And I said, I'm not going to let myself be let down like that. You guys know absolutely nothing about what he's doing. Yzerman never lets you guys know what he's doing. And I am not going to think that something huge is happening, and then when nothing huge is happening, be pissed off. I'm not going to do that. So I didn't, and I was right. Hey, look at that. I can claim right on one thing so far. But it was, they just don't, people get all in their heads about what the talking heads on Twitter say, like the insiders. But at the end of the day, like, the Red Wings are the last team you should trust the insiders on. They don't know anything. And they'll tell you they don't know anything. Yzerman is the tightest lock out of all NHL GMs. He lets nothing out. So are there more moves to be made? Yes, there absolutely are more moves to be made. There have to be. Yes. Whether it's having Joe Veleno once again file for arbitration and get a second buyout window, trading players away, trading to teams who are under the cap floor to just get rid of contracts. There are going to be things that happen. We're going to promote rookies. Like, get excited. Like, it's going to be a good time. Expect maybe a little regression, but like, you got to at least at some point see what these kids can do. And there's at least 2 of them that are NHL ready right now.
Yes.
And we can follow up on that, Greg, as one of our last questions, but just to be respectful of your time, once again, we appreciate you for hopping on this episode with us. But one of the final questions, or at least my final question, Carlo, you can obviously follow up with this if you want to, but Greg, do you think the Atlantic got better after free agency day 1, even day 2? I mean, just kind of reading off the Atlantic and some of the bigger things that some of these teams made, like Boston, Lindholm, Zadorov, Korpisalo trade, Buffalo, they got Zucker, Lafferty, James Reimer, our dear and loyal goaltender friend. The Red Wings got Kane, Gustafsson, and Talbot. Panthers, they really didn't make too many changes. Lost a couple players. The Habs, they signed Slavkovsky. They really didn't make any huge additions. Sens got Perron and Olmark. They just got Shane Pinto a little bit before this too. Bolts got Gensel, Atkinson. They moved on from Sergachev. Huge swings there. And then the Leafs, they get Tanev, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and Anthony Stolarz. I think that was by far their best move, but still confused by all the moves that they made.
I think the Leafs are going to be brutal.
Do you think that the division got better, Greg?
So today, there's a tweet also, the Leafs aren't trading Mitch Marner, apparently. Like, that was one of the pitches to try and get someone out there who went to Edmonton instead of Toronto.
Skinner.
Yeah, they pitched to Skinner. They're
Mhm.
like, you can play with Matthews and Marner. And he's like, I'm going to go to Edmonton. So that's what he said. So apparently they plan on keeping Marner. Nate Schmidt just signed with the Florida Panthers 1 year, 800,000.
Ooh, I
Missed
like
that
that. I like
So
that.
I don't think, I mean, if you were to ask me which team got the most better, I would say probably Boston.
Yeah,
Maybe
for
like
sure.
Lindholm is a solid player. Zadorov is a big mean guy. Like those are two important moves for them, I guess. And they really didn't give up anything, and they're not losing a ton. Like they lost Jake DeBrusk, so that's part of what they're going to have to replace internally, because Lindholm is just, you needed to add something on top of what you had gotten, what you weren't going to lose. I don't know what the hell Ottawa's doing. They got worse.
Dude.
Toronto is objectively worse than they were. Montreal, like you said, did nothing. Hard to get worse when you do nothing, and they were already bad. So, like, I think, and then I would say Tampa got worse too. I mean, you move out Stamkos, you extend Hedman, but you lose Sergachev.
Yeah.
So I think it's a pretty big loss. I would say that if you were to run the season right now, the Red Wings keep Patrick Kane, get him for a whole season. They get better in goal. They get a better defensively. I'm not going to say their defense got better, but the team as a whole got better defensively.
Yep.
So I think
that's true with the subtraction.
Yeah, I don't think that it's fair to say, oh, and I've had people say, oh, well, Red Wings are a lottery team. They're a bottom 10 team in the league next year. I don't think it's that easy, because no one around us got like markedly better by the moves that they made. Like I would tell you that Buffalo probably got worse. Like, in Ottawa, I think definitely got worse. So I'm not sure, like, what the hell was that Chikrin trade?
Yeah, for real.
What was that? And on the other hand, what is Washington even doing? Do they know that Alex Ovechkin is going to be like 110 years old?
Yeah.
Like by the time, like, they've refused to rebuild. So I wouldn't say that we got worse. I wouldn't really say that anyone got a whole ton better. A lot of people almost just stayed the same, which is okay with me, I guess, because we were like tied to make the playoffs, and I mean, run it back, I guess. But like I said, there's still more to do.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. So this is the follow-up question that I have for this too, as well. But Carlo, you could obviously answer that first question too with the second question. Can our core five elevate this team to the playoffs? So the 5 is Larkin, Raymond, Alex DeBrincat, Kane, and Sider. Can these 5 alone, because we keep on mentioning, you could throw in Simon Edvinsson in there too, because we're getting a full season with him. Can these 6 players get the Red Wings into a playoff position?
Yes.
I would say it's possible. I don't know how sold I am on saying like yes, but I think it's possible.
I think Cam Talbot is a huge upgrade at our goaltending. I love the interview that he gave too. He seems like a really cool guy. I would go get quite a few numbers of beers with that guy and just shoot the shit with him.
Patrick Kane has money riding on it. Part of his bonus is make the playoffs.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good way to look at it. I just, the hard part, this is my measuring stick, okay? The 7-game losing streak in March. That's my measuring stick. I look at this team right. What's that?
Don't lose Dylan Larkin for 7 games.
This is my concern, though. If we do, because we know that someone's going to make their annual murder attempt on him. Happens all the time. If we do lose him, one of the things Steve wanted last year, and this was probably, I think it was a mid-season media release, and he was saying how they need to have somebody who can play when Larkin is out.
Yeah.
Who is that guy?
Nate Danielson.
That's pretty much all we got. We already tried the Veleno. You tried the Comfer. You tried Comp.
You think he can do it?
Nate Danielson could have played this season with how his preseason went. I think Nate Danielson could have played this season. Could he play QC this season? That's debatable. But I think Nate Danielson, if I were to say guys coming out of camp, I think Nate Danielson has as good a chance as anyone else to make this team out of camp. Like Carter Mazur, I think could have made the team last season.
What is he, 23, right? I feel like he's got to be on the team. It's got to be a lot.
So I think Nate is a guy who, I think, like I said, he's like a mini Larkin. And if he can make the team out of camp, I think that he's the kind of guy who might start the season at wing and move to center, but I think he's the kind of guy that could do it.
So my measuring stick, that 7-game losing streak with this team right now, let's say Danielson's in, Mazur's in, Mazur's in, sorry, and we have our goalie situation figured out and we're riding, let's say it's Lyon and Talbot. Do we lose 7 games in March? Do we lose more?
No.
Or do we lose less?
No, because hopefully, and Talbot ate a lot of games last season. I think you could do a 2-1. You could play Lyon 2 games, Talbot 1, Lyon 2, Talbot 1. You could A-B them. They both, like, this was last season was the most games Lions ever played by a long shot.
Yeah, no doubt.
In a season. He was clearly overextended. You don't have to do that anymore. So I think you're at a better goaltender situation. You're in a better defensive situation. And then I think you will, by the end of this offseason, be in a better forward situation to where you'll have some guys that'll defend people. You'll be able to stop pucks from going in because you got better goaltending and better defense. And I think you will have those guys that can step up, like Lucas did late in that stretch. And he can do, I think, again, after taking that next step in order to offset any kind of injury that happens. So I say, yeah. I mean, especially since Kane's got money riding on it, I'm going to say, yeah, they make the playoffs.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I want to throw this out there. If you thought that Lucas Raymond hit his ceiling, you're mistaken because that boy's got another gear in him. I firmly believe that. I think that there's a next step there, and I would love to see him do that. And same with Moritz Seider, but we all know it was a deployment thing majority of the time with him last year too. But I think there's another elevation to this game, and I'm very, very hopeful that Gustafsson can do that. Well, Greg, we appreciate you stopping by. I really don't have any more questions. It sounds like Carlo doesn't, but do you have any questions for us? Is there anything you want to touch on that we could just kind of do a roundtable on, or?
No, I think it's a lot of going to be just like see what happens. Like we're recording. I was like, man, I hope really something happens in the next like hour because we start at like 8:30. I'm hitting record at 8:30. I'm hoping a trade happens before then. But no, I mean, we'll circle back once this is over because I think it's going to be like a wrap up of, okay, now we're heading into preseason. What are the major storylines? Yep. But I think we covered everything that's happened in the last week. It's been a crazy week. Totally. I had to like follow the entire thing like on a cell phone in the middle of the woods. So that's been fun.
Well, we're thankful for that, Greg. Yeah, don't get lost in the woods, but we definitely want you to make a return. That's for sure. But yeah, that's great to hear. We once again, we want to appreciate, and say thank you for joining us once again. But let the people once again, if they joined in late or if they just wanted to fast forward for whatever reason, go ahead and let the people know how to find you, where you're from.
I run all the socials, so you can find us on every single social channel under the sun at Grindline Pod. We are on YouTube. Our episodes go live weekly. Starting this season, I think we're going to end up doing 2 a week, 2 smaller episodes during the week, and then 1 long episode a week during the off season. But yeah, on YouTube, you can go sub to us, turn on the notifications, and find us on Twitter again because I refuse to call it X.
My man, I love it.
Yeah, if you guys don't already listen, watch, follow them, I'd be very surprised. So go ahead and do that right now already, please, for their sake and for our sake. We really, once again, Greg, I can't say it enough. I'm very much a hospitality person. So thank you very much for joining us once again.
No problem.
We really do appreciate that. Yeah. And so I think we can send it off here, boys. And so with that, thank you once again for joining us on this episode. We'll actually see you guys here in a little bit once Greg hops off, and we'll just kind of finish off some stuff. So Greg, once again, thanks for joining us, man. We really do appreciate it.
Yes, Greg. Thank you, man.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
And welcome back. That was quick. Greg left. Carlo, honestly, claps for Greg.
Claps for Greg. Grindline Pod. That whole team, they're great. I mean, they've been doing it for a while. And again, just nothing but love for these guys. They're the ones that really got me personally wanting to kind of share my thoughts and my opinions on the Red Wings. And I've been watching them my whole life. So obviously there's a lot to tell and a lot to cover. And these guys are great. They're super, super awesome online. They're super awesome to talk to bounce things off of. And we're really, really appreciative of Greg's time. I know he's a busy guy. And I thought that was great though, man. And I think there is, like I said, I kind of asked the question of, is it Yzerman or Yzerman, and I feel like we're all in kind of this weird space right now, but I think you gotta be patient because I mean that's kind of Steve's favorite word, and he's really making us be patient. And I think we're a long way from home still, man. So Greg really spelled things out quite nicely. He steered us down the path of what he thinks is going to be coming through. And obviously we know there's more to come. What it is, we have no clue, but there is something to kind of put the final nuts and bolts on this roster. But he brought up some good reassuring points. I don't know how much better we got defensively as a unit, like defensive core, but with the subtraction of certain people, I think by default we are better defensively as a team now without certain players on the roster. So I think he really did a good job spelling that out, and that was a great episode. And again, Greg, thank you. Grindline guys, we appreciate it, and we look forward to more, man. We look forward to having some more folks on just to talk Red Wings hockey. That's, again, it's nothing but love. That's why we do this, right?
Yeah, and that's why I threw that out there too. It is all love, right? And we are different podcasts, and we all have our different thoughts, and that's why we bring some of these guys on, because it's very easy to get caught up in your own inner circle and combine your thoughts, and we all agree with each other, and it's always good to have someone else different come on and shed their light onto us and what their thought process is on the whole thing. And much like you said, Carlo, Greg made a lot of really great points that I think we can agree on, maybe some that we don't necessarily agree with, but are really good takes still that could go either way. There is no right or wrong in your opinion, and what you think can happen and how you feel can happen. Well, feelings, try to temper feelings a little bit, try to be a little logic about it. But
right.
But what I'm getting at is, I think he shed some light on us, gave us some really good insights on what he thinks and whatever we haven't seen on Twitter already, because we do follow them on there. And Greg is very active on social media, but he makes a lot of good points, and so do the other Grindline boys. So like I said, I'm very shocked if you guys don't know about them already.
Literally.
So if you don't, go ahead and give them a follow. They're all over Twitter. They're all over Facebook, social medias. I'm sure you can find them on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all those subscriptions based podcasts to go on there and follow them. So same with us. So thank you for keeping on task with us during this episode. And if you haven't already, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below if you're on YouTube, and then hit the thumbs up button if you're on Spotify. 5 stars, like us, follow us, and then obviously on Apple Podcasts. I don't know what you do on there. I think you just follow us, right, Carlo? We finally just got on there, so I'm still learning myself.
Yeah, listen, Apple Podcasts is great. It's huge. I think if you if folks are listening and they're in the car, Apple Podcasts might be the way to go. It's Spotify obviously is good as well, especially for the video aspect of it. I kind of like YouTube better, but no free ads. But Apple Podcast is great for on the go. You're driving, you're on the road, you're going for that walk. Boom, we're there, and it's super good to be there as well. A lot of exposure there as well. But check us out. Follow us, comment, and to be honest with you guys, I'll ask you the same question. Are you guys in the people watching and made it this far? How are you spelling Yzerman right now? Are you spelling it with a Y, the letter Y, or are you starting it off with WHY? Yzerman or Yzerman? That's the question right now. And I'd love to hear what you guys think. The direction we're in right now, and kind of what's happening and what you think's coming, and do you agree with some of the points that Greg made? Or do you disagree? We'd love to kind of discuss that some more in the comments section for sure. So please feel free to drop us a line. Obviously, drop us that follow and that like. It goes a long, long way. And with that said, Zach,
I think we could do our final thoughts from here, right? I don't think I have anything else to say other than thank you once again to Greg. I very much am someone who wants to give people hospitality and treat them with kindness and respect, like Carlos said, and like I said at the start, all love, no war here, always, right? Man. We're all here at the same goal, where we just really love talking about hockey, Red Wings, and want to provide good content for everyone. So yeah, Carlo, let's go ahead and jump into the final thoughts. So go ahead, buddy, take it away.
Final thoughts are, to be continued, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
I think I think we're in a spot right now that is just kind of weird.
Very weird.
Gray
area, very gray area.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm not saying that with any negative tones or anything like that. I just think there's not enough. There hasn't been enough information to really give a good final thought. So this is definitely to be continued. And rest assured, once things start to tighten up and roster starts to take shape, we will definitely be back to do some more kind of in-depth reviews of what we think is going to happen. And I think at that point, the final thought will be a little more solidified. So what is my final thought? I don't have one yet.
And that's fine. That's fine. Honestly, yeah, just TBD.
Yeah.
Blank.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank in a week or two right now. Remember, for those of you that, if you're freaking out a little bit, it's okay if you are. I'm kind of freaking out too a little bit, but you got to temper the expectations. You got to understand that something will happen. We talked about it. Did this team get worse? I don't think they necessarily got worse. Did they get better? Maybe a little bit. But the Atlantic, I don't think really got that much better, nor do I really think it got that much worse. But the question I asked was, can this team elevate themselves into a playoff spot? I think so. So that's my final thought. But this is still TBD. There's still much left to be seen. That defense needs to be shaken up a little bit. You got 9 defensemen signed. One Sider's done. Albert Johansson's moved up and Simon Evanson's moved up. You only have 8 forwards. You have 4 goaltenders. I know Jake Campbell will go down to GRG, but still Steve said he didn't want 3. So TBD, Carlo, a lot TBD.
Yeah, there's just not enough. There's too much, but not enough. It's that's why I say this is very weird. We're congested, but we have holes. So it's just a weird time. Just a really, really weird time.
It's very difficult waking up in the morning and looking at my phone and not seeing anything Steve do anything. I'm just like, please do something. You're like that meme, the guy with the stick, and then just do something.
Yes,
do something.
That's kind of where something needs to go down. But you know what? And somebody posted this online, and it's honestly pretty accurate. But for whatever it is worth to everybody watching, still listening, Steve hasn't spoke with the media yet.
Yep.
Typically, that's a solid indication that he's not done.
Yep.
I said it in the group chat earlier. I wouldn't want to take questions right now if I was Steve.
No way.
It's not. Nothing looks. It's just too confusing right now. So,
yeah,
I think for whatever that's worth, I think there's some things to come. Hopefully, some good things to come, and maybe once we get that presser, it'll warrant kind of an emergency episode because there will be some moves made to indicate that Yzerman is indeed done, in which he'll be speaking with the media. So we'll definitely be following up. And maybe at that point, we'll have some final thoughts, folks. I think that's a good bet.
In due time, maybe this time next week. Well, technically, we're recording on a Tuesday. We're doing a midweek episode for you lovely viewers and followers, subscribers and fans, whatever you want to call yourselves. I can call you guys groupies, right? I think. I don't know. You guys probably aren't even making it towards the end of this episode, so I can call you whatever I want.
But if you did make it, let us know what you want Zach to call you, just so we know you were still here.
I just want to do hood rat shit with my friends. And from there, we'll go ahead and close it out. Carlo, thank you for stopping by and joining us on this episode of Hockeytown Rundown once again. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter, Spotify, any social media platform. We're on all of them. Even Threads, believe it or not. I don't have it up on our background. I probably should, Carlo, but who cares? No one uses it. And those are my final thoughts, and we'll go ahead and take it out of here, Carlo. So thank you. We'll see y'all on the next one.
Thanks, guys. See you later.